Chapter 1. The Thanksgiving Toast. Thanksgiving at the Harris house always carried the same flavor: dry turkey, fake smiles, and overcooked judgment. The only thing crisp in the place was the wine, which Lena's mother, Donna, kept pouring like it was holy water. Jake stood at the head of the table, carving knife in hand, as his wife's family surrounded him like wolves in Kashmir. The scent of roasted stuffing and buttered corn drifted through the air, but Jake barely tasted any of it. He focused on slicing the turkey just right, arranging the pieces with quiet precision, the way he did everything: slow, careful, dependable. "So, Jake," said Howard, Lena's father, from the far end of the table. "Still under the hood 6 days a week? Must be nice not bringing work home with you." A round of forced chuckles echoed. Jake gave a polite smile. "Someone's got to keep your Lexus running, right?" Howard huffed. "That's true. You've saved me a fortune in labor. I'll give you that." Jake nodded without looking up. "Glad I could help." Lena was across from him, swirling her wine. She hadn't touched the food yet. She looked good, always did, hair curled just enough, that burgundy dress hugging her curves. But there was a coldness in her eyes lately. She looked at Jake like a stranger, like she was watching a rerun she no longer found funny. Her phone buzzed on the table. She turned it face down quickly, fingers a little too fast. Donna raised her glass and cleared her throat. "Let's make a toast before everything gets cold." Everyone lifted their wine. "To family," Donna began. "To health, to another year of blessings. And to Lena for surviving 19 years with a man who can't even afford a real vacation. You deserve a medal, sweetheart." Laughter burst around the table. Lena smirked, her eyes flicking toward Jake. Then she said it casually, as if it were a joke. But it wasn't. Or a better man. The room went silent for a beat too long. Even the kids upstairs paused their game for a second. Jake stood frozen with the carving knife in hand, a slice of turkey dangling from the tip. His smile didn't break, but something inside him did. He cleared his throat, said nothing, and carefully placed the meat on the platter. Howard chuckled awkwardly. "Well, I'm sure she's joking, Jake. You know how Lena gets after a few glasses." "Sure," Jake said, finally looking up. His eyes met Lena's for just a second. She didn't look embarrassed, didn't look sorry. She looked bored. Dinner went on with muted chatter. Jake served everyone first. Then finally he sat down himself. His plate stayed mostly full. He chewed, swallowed, nodded politely. But his mind wasn't on the food. Lena laughed a little too hard at her brother's joke. Her phone buzzed again. She checked under the table this time, thinking no one noticed. Jake noticed. He sipped his beer slowly, eyes scanning the table, hearing the same old stories from her side of the family. Promotions, new condos, weekend trips to Napa. His garage barely made enough this quarter to cover payroll and rent. He hadn't told Lena yet. No point. Halfway through dinner, she excused herself, phone in hand, saying she needed to check on something. Jake followed her with his eyes as she walked out of the dining room, her fingers already dancing over the screen. "Probably checking Pinterest again," Donna whispered to her sister-in-law. "Always glued to that phone lately." "Probably some side hustle," her sister replied. "Or someone she wishes was." Jake set down his fork. That comment, meant as a joke, landed like a gut punch. He didn't react, just slowly reached for the wine bottle and poured himself a little more. He didn't even like wine. When Lena came back, her lipstick was freshly touched up, her smile a little too wide. She reached for more mashed potatoes without making eye contact with Jake. It wasn't new, her distance. It had been creeping in for months like a slow leak under a foundation. At first, he thought it was stress. Her job, the kids, maybe boredom. But it had a smell to it now. Something sour, something familiar, like a blown-head gasket you didn't notice until the smoke started to rise. After dinner, Jake did the dishes like always. Hands deep in suds, he stared out the kitchen window as Lena and her cousin gossiped on the back patio, wine glasses in hand, laughing about something just out of earshot. Her phone lit up again on the counter behind him. A text. The name on the screen was just initials. RJ. His stomach tightened. He didn't touch it, just looked at it until the screen dimmed again. Later that night, after the guests had left and the kids were tucked upstairs, Lena changed into her pajamas without a word. She didn't ask him to join her in bed. She just flipped the light off and rolled away, her back a wall of silence. Jake lay on the couch downstairs, unable to sleep. The TV murmured some late-night talk show, but he wasn't watching. He stared at the ceiling, at the popcorn texture, thinking about what she'd said at dinner. Or a better man. Not as a joke. Not in passing. She meant it. And worse, she'd said it in front of everyone, like he wasn't even in the room. He thought about the years, nights under cars, fingers cut, bones aching, the missed holidays, the side jobs to afford dance classes, the overtime shifts so she could have new tires or braces for their daughter, or that trip to Florida she said she hated anyway. He thought about her laugh when he used to tickle her thighs, about the way she'd sit on the hood of his first truck, sipping beer in cut-off jeans, daring him to stop working and just look at her. That woman was gone, replaced by someone who smirked when her mother mocked him. His chest felt heavy. Not angry, not yet. Just hollow. That was the moment the storm started, the quiet kind. The one that doesn't crash in like thunder, but swells steady behind the eyes. He noticed Lena's coldness. The way she flinched when he reached to grab her phone by mistake. The way her smile always seemed aimed at something just past his shoulder. The way she started wearing perfume again, not for him. She was slipping away. Maybe she was already gone. The first red flags quietly rose. Chapter 2. The cracks in the foundation. It had started at the corner of 9th and Madison 19 years ago. Jake still remembered the red neon beer sign flickering outside McCall's pub, the smell of grease and old wood mingling in the air, and the way she walked in like she didn't belong, but wanted to. Lena, 20, with those sly green eyes and a mouth that could cut and kiss in the same breath. Jake had been 23 then, just out of trade school, still wearing oil-stained jeans and knuckles raw from years of wrench turning. She'd sauntered up to the bar like it was a runway, ordered a whiskey sour, and said, "You look like the kind of guy who knows how to ruin a good girl's GPA." Jake had laughed so hard he dropped a glass. He wasn't used to girls like her. Confident, clever, wild in the eyes. She wore leather boots and a denim jacket that didn't belong in that dump, and she drank like she had something to forget. They stayed up that night until the bar closed, talking in the alley behind the dumpster while she smoked a menthol. She told him she hated her sociology professor, loved classic rock, and wanted to write poetry, but settled for marketing. He told her he fixed engines, didn't believe in fate, and thought poetry was for guys with clean hands. She kissed him anyway. Their early days were the kind of love you only get once, messy, loud, and full of fire. They made out in the front seat of his busted Chevy, went to cheap concerts, fought over everything from pizza toppings to politics, and always ended up tangled together, breathless and grinning. But somewhere between Lena's second miscarriage and Jake's third straight year of double shifts, something changed. Now, at 42, Jake still rose before dawn, packed his thermos and toolbox, and drove to the same garage he'd been running for over a decade. He came home to a quiet house, sometimes too quiet. Lena was always on the couch, laptop glowing, wine glass in hand. Sometimes she said hi. Sometimes she didn't. Jake tried to convince himself it was normal. People got tired. Kids grew up. Conversations dulled. That's what marriage was, weathering the quiet between storms. But still, something kept tugging at the back of his mind, like a bolt not quite tightened. It was the little things at first. She didn't laugh at his jokes anymore. That laugh, low and throaty, the one that used to make him feel 10 feet tall, was now reserved for a phone screen. Her smile had become something tight, polite, performative. When he reached to rub her feet at night, like he used to, she shifted away. Claimed she was sore, tired, not in the mood. One Tuesday night, he came home from work an hour early. Lena wasn't expecting him. He stepped in and heard music playing faintly from the bedroom upstairs. Not their music. Something newer, something smooth and polished. He took his boots off quietly and padded to the stairs. Lena was standing by the mirror in just a towel, her hair still damp. She didn't notice him at first. She was texting someone, her face lit with that rare, secret smile he hadn't seen aimed at him in months. He watched her type something, pause, then giggle softly and retype. Jake cleared his throat. "Hey." She jumped slightly, turned. Jesus, Jake, you scared me. Came home early. Frank let us go. What's so funny? Oh, nothing, she said, covering her phone with her towel like it was a reflex. Just stupid TikTok stuff. He raised an eyebrow. Didn't know TikTok made you blush. She rolled her eyes, brushing past him. Don't start. Later that night, she showered again. That made 2 showers in one day. Jake had spent 19 years with her. He knew her habits, her routines, the rhythm of her life. She never showered twice in a day, especially not after coming home from work. He told himself he was being paranoid. But then it happened again. Friday night, she came home late, claimed there was an emergency marketing call with a West Coast client. She smelled faintly of cologne, not his. Something sharp, masculine, unfamiliar. She showered immediately again. Jake waited until she was asleep and stepped into the bathroom. He smelled the air, ran a finger along the sink's edge. Nothing out of place. Nothing concrete. Just off. That weekend, while folding laundry, he found a silk bra he didn't recognize. Red, lacy. Not her usual style. She claimed it was from years ago, from a box she hadn't unpacked in ages. He nodded. Didn't argue. But the doubt had already taken root. The phone became her second skin. She clutched it like oxygen. Started taking it into the bathroom with her. Sleeping with it under her pillow. One night, it buzzed at 2:13 a.m. Jake reached for it. Half asleep, instinctively checking, she jolted up and yanked it away. Don't touch my phone, she snapped. Jake blinked, stunned. It buzzed. Thought it might be your mom. She stared at him, her face unreadable. It wasn't. She turned her back and went back to sleep like nothing happened. Jake lay there, wide awake, eyes on the ceiling, his gut twisting. The next day, Jake came home early again. Lena's car was already in the driveway, which was odd. She was supposed to be at work until 6. He walked into the house quietly. The living room was empty. Music upstairs. Water running. He walked up the stairs slow. The door to their bedroom was half closed. Her purse was on the floor by the bed, half spilled. He wasn't trying to pry. Not really. But something fell out of it. An extra phone charger tangled in her scarf. Jake bent down and picked it up. He stared at it for a long time. Not their charger. Not their brand. Not their color. She didn't have a second phone. At least, she wasn't supposed to. He stood there, charger in hand, heart thudding, while the water in the shower kept running and her silhouette moved faintly behind the glass. He brushed it off until he found a second phone charger hidden in her purse. Chapter 3. Surveillance and Secrets. Jake had always believed in honesty. It was in his bones, same as grease under his nails and calluses on his palms. A man was only as good as his word, his work, and the people he kept promises to. For 19 years, he trusted Lena. Not blindly, but faithfully. That was the difference. But trust doesn't die with a scream. It starves. It fades like rust eating through steel, slow and quiet. And Jake couldn't ignore the rattle in his gut anymore. He sat in his truck outside the hardware store, the receipt still warm in his hand, the tiny black recorder resting on the passenger seat. He stared at it like it might explode. Part of him hated himself for buying it. The other part, the part that had watched Lena lie to his face without even blinking, held the box tighter. The thing was no bigger than a thumb drive. Voice activated. 10-hour battery. Disguised as a car key fob. The sales guy had said it was popular with concerned parents. Jake didn't laugh. That night, while Lena was in the shower, he slipped out to the garage and opened the driver's side door of her Mazda. She never locked it, not in their own driveway. He slid the recorder under the front passenger seat, out of sight, nestled near the console. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, from shame. I'm not proud of this, he whispered to no one. But I need to know. The next morning, Lena left early for work, barely saying goodbye. She kissed his cheek mechanically, grabbing her travel mug and coat in a blur. Her phone never left her hand. Jake waited until she was gone. Then he waited some more. 12 hours later, under the cover of a crisp night sky, he retrieved the device. Back in the garage, he plugged it into his laptop. The screen flickered as the files loaded. Jake sat at his workbench, flanked by old socket wrenches and half-drained oil cans, and hit play. At first, there was nothing, just the familiar creaks of her suspension. Lena muttering to herself, sighing. Then music. A podcast, maybe. Midway through the second file, something changed. A new voice. Male. Low, smooth. Confident. Jake leaned closer. Lena's voice. Lighter than he'd heard it in months. God, your hands. You always know how to him. You were thinking about me last night, weren't you? Lena, giggling. You have no idea. I couldn't even focus. Had to sneak into the bathroom just to, don't make me say it. Him. Say it. Lena, whispering. I touched myself thinking about your mouth. Jake froze. His chest tightened. The kind of pain you can't rub out or breathe through. Like someone reached inside him and twisted everything backwards. He wanted to turn it off. He didn't. More laughter. The sounds of shifting. Clothing rustling. A breathy moan. Then Lena whispered something that shattered everything left holding Jake together. God, you make me feel alive. Then a wet, audible kiss. And another. The shuffle of limbs. Jake slammed the laptop shut. The garage went silent. Only the distant hum of a neighbor's leaf blower rattled in the distance. He sat there, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor, heart pounding like a drum in his ears. He didn't cry right away. He just sat there, breathing through his teeth, jaw clenched so tight it ached. His knuckles were white, gripping the edge of the workbench like it might keep him from falling. He kept seeing her in his mind, smiling, gasping, saying things she used to say to him. Her voice wasn't sad. It wasn't confused. It was alive. Alive. That word echoed again and again, like a hammer on a cracked windshield. He buried his face in his hands. The tears came slowly, not as a sob, but as a low, quiet groan. The kind a man makes when he knows he's lost something he can't fix. Something past repair. It wasn't just betrayal. It was grief. He still loved her. That was the worst part. He still loved her, but now he's not sure who she really is. Chapter 4. The Stranger in My Bed. Jake never thought it was possible to feel so alone in a house full of life. The dishwasher hummed, the kids bickered over TV remotes, the dog scratched at the back door, and Lena floated through it all like a ghost with perfect makeup. And still, it felt like someone had hit mute on his entire world. He played the part, smiled where he had to, grunted jokes with his son during football highlights, nodded at dinner like the meatloaf wasn't flavorless clay in his mouth. He was on autopilot, watching his own life from behind glass. Nights were the worst. Lena still climbed into bed like nothing was wrong, still curled up against him, laying her head near his chest, sometimes tangling her legs with his like they were two people in love. But Jake wasn't there anymore. Not really. Every time she touched him, something inside him recoiled, his body flinching a second before he could hide it. The feel of her breath on his shoulder used to calm him. Now, it made his stomach churn. She'd press her body close, her skin warm, smooth, familiar. Too familiar. It sickened him. One night, she reached for his phone by mistake, thinking it was hers. Jake didn't flinch, but when he reached for her phone to plug it in, her reaction was instant. She snatched it back like it was a live grenade. Hey. Jake looked at her calmly. It was just the charger. Her eyes narrowed. Don't you trust me? The question hung in the air like a bad smell. He wanted to scream, to laugh, to throw the damn phone across the room and yell, trust you? After what I heard, after what you said to him in your car. Instead, he offered her the faintest of smiles. Of course, he said, just trying to help. She held his gaze for a second longer than she needed to, like she was testing him. Then she rolled over, back facing him, and said nothing else. The silence between them had weight now. Not the peaceful kind, but the tight, suffocating kind you only feel when two people are lying to each other in opposite ways. At work, Jake wasn't much better. He stood under the hood of a '98 Toyota Camry, staring at a cracked serpentine belt he'd replaced an hour ago and not realizing it. Grease on his hands, his forehead, under his fingernails, and still he felt numb. His coworker, Manny, passed by and slapped his shoulder. You okay, boss? Manny asked, chewing on sunflower seeds. You've been zoning out like a preacher at a strip club. Jake forced a chuckle. Just tired, man. Long week. Manny nodded, but didn't look convinced. You sure? I mean, you look like someone pissed in your coffee for a month straight. Jake smirked. It's nothing. Just need to get out of my own head. You ever do that thing where you forget why you walked into a room? Manny asked. You look like that, but all day long. Jake said nothing. Just wiped his hands on a rag and walked back into the shop. He used to love his garage. The whir of power tools, the hiss of air compressors, the rhythm of clanking metal and oil-stained music playing from the old radio in the corner. It made sense here. Parts were broken. You fixed them. No lies. No guessing. No pretending. At home, nothing made sense anymore. That night, after the kids went to sleep and the house settled into its usual nighttime lull, Jake and Lena sat on opposite ends of the living room. He was half watching a late-night game. She was scrolling on her phone, earbuds in, smiling softly at something she wasn't sharing. He couldn't take it anymore. He muted the TV. She didn't notice at first. Lena, he said gently, you seem distant lately. She pulled out one earbud. Huh? You just seem off, like your mind's always somewhere else. She looked at him, expression unreadable. Then she laughed. Not cruelly, but casually, like he just said something quaint. Maybe I just need a real vacation, Jake, she said, setting her phone aside. Not another weekend at a roadside motel. The words were soft, not loud or angry or mean, but they cut cleaner than any blade. Jake blinked. That was their last trip. 4 months ago. A 2-day getaway to a little lake town, just the two of them. He'd saved up overtime hours to make it happen. She'd smiled the first night. They'd made love on that lumpy mattress. She'd even said thank you. And now, it was a punchline. The jab cut deep. Jake nodded, said nothing, and stared back at the muted TV screen. He swallowed the bitterness crawling up his throat. But inside, something turned to stone. Chapter 5. A Mechanic's Revenge. Jake was done asking questions. Done guessing, wondering, pacing, pretending. There was a time he would have fought to save what they had, talked it through, begged for honesty, maybe even forgiven. But something in him had changed. Maybe it was the tone of her laugh when she texted him, or the way she flinched from his touch like he was a stranger in her life. She had killed something sacred. Now he wasn't angry. He was precise. Weeks passed in silence. Lena went about her days, oblivious to what Jake was building in the shadows. She still texted under the table, smiled when she thought he wasn't looking, made excuses about late meetings that always fell on Thursdays. Jake waited. He researched for days, browsing forums, watching DIY surveillance tutorials, even asking questions in obscure subreddits under the username Truth Tuned Up. He ordered a micro HD camera with night vision, motion sensors, and remote streaming. He also upgraded the home Wi-Fi, added encrypted cloud storage, and set up auto backups to 3 separate drives. The camera was installed in the air vent across from her bed. It was seamless, nothing more than a shadow in the metal. From that angle, he had a full view of the room. Every step, every lie. He tested it for days, timing how long it took Lena to notice changes. She never did. Jake kept acting normal, kissing her cheek when she left, complimenting her roast chicken, smiling at her mother's phone calls. He watched her lie with ease, and each time, it added another brick to the wall he was building inside himself. Then he picked his day. Thursday. Jake woke early, dressed like normal, and packed his lunch like any other day. The garage crew thought he was coming in for a transmission job, but he'd already called in sick. Told them he had the flu. At 6:45 a.m., Lena kissed him goodbye at the door. Her lips barely brushed his cheek. Don't forget to pick up milk, she said, already glancing at her phone. Jake nodded. Love you. She didn't say it back. He watched her drive away. Then he walked around the side of the house and into the shed, ducking under the half-broken window he'd left cracked open the night before. It smelled like oil, mulch, and summer rain. But it was dry, hidden, perfect. Inside, Jake had a folding chair, a thermos, and his laptop. A power cord ran under the deck, tapped into the outside outlet. His internet signal was strong. The feed came up crisp and clear. The bedroom sat still and empty on the screen. By 9:23 a.m., Lena returned, home early from work. Jake didn't blink. He just stared. She was smiling when she came in. She tossed her purse on the bed and checked her reflection in the mirror. Then she changed clothes, something tighter, low-cut. She sprayed perfume and fixed her hair. Her phone lit up. She texted someone. Jake zoomed the feed in slightly. Her lips moved. She was practicing what to say. At 10:06, a knock came at the front door. Lena darted from the frame. Seconds later, she returned, with him. Tall, athletic, mid-30s, collared shirt unbuttoned too far. Smug face. Jake didn't recognize him, but he didn't need to. Lena kissed the man before the door even closed. Jake clenched his jaw. He didn't cry, didn't scream. He simply reached over and toggled the stream to live, routing it through an anonymous hosting link he'd preloaded and set to auto-broadcast. Within minutes, strangers flooded the feed. At first a few dozen, then hundreds, thousands. The title was simple. Wife cheats while husband works, watch what happens. No names, no address, no faces shown. Just truth. Undeniable, raw, and in real time. Jake leaned back, breathing slow and even harder rock in his chest. On the screen, Lena giggled and crawled onto the bed. I missed you, she cooed. The man smirked, crawling over her. You say that every Thursday. They kissed again. The camera picked up everything. Jake didn't look away. By noon, the view count was soaring. Over 45,000 people were watching by the end of the day. Chapter 6. The day after Christmas. Jake had never been a good actor, but on Christmas Day, he deserved an Oscar. He smiled when Lena handed him a new flannel jacket, laughed when her father made yet another dig about real men making six figures, and clinked glasses during the family toast like he wasn't dying inside. He even helped their daughter set up her new tablet, showed his son how to build a basketball hoop from scratch in the backyard, and kissed Lena's cheek while standing beneath the mistletoe. She didn't flinch. She was good at pretending to. There was no tension in her eyes, no trace of guilt in her smile. She passed the mashed potatoes, laughed with her cousins, and drank her wine like a woman perfectly at ease. Jake watched her that entire day like a man watching a stranger wear his wife's skin. But he didn't let it show, because the show wasn't over yet. The next morning, December 26th, was cold and gray. Frost etched delicate lace across the windows. Jake was in the kitchen sipping coffee when Lena shuffled in wearing her robe, her hair messy, cheeks flushed from sleep. Merry day after, she mumbled, pouring herself some coffee. Still recovering from your mom's ham? Jake chuckled lightly. Yeah, that thing could have been used for ballistic testing. She laughed, a soft, easy sound. Then she checked her phone. A frown flickered across her face, but she said nothing, probably wondering why he hadn't texted yet. Jake sat at the kitchen table, watching the steam rise from his mug, heart beating in slow, steady thuds. At 9:04 a.m., the doorbell rang. Lena looked up. Who's that? We're not expecting anyone, right? Jake shrugged and stood. Maybe UPS. But it wasn't brown and yellow on the other side of the door. It was three men. Tall, clean-cut, dressed in sharp black suits. Not a wrinkle between them. The one in the middle, broad-shouldered, mid-40s, nodded politely. Mrs. Harris? He asked, voice calm, firm. Lena appeared behind Jake, pulling her robe tighter. Yes. He held up a small black leather bag, the kind you'd expect to see in a spy film or locked in a safe. This is for you, he said, but it's forbidden to open it until we've left. Lena blinked. What is it? Who are you? The man didn't answer. He simply extended the bag toward her, his gloved hand steady. Jake stepped aside and let her take it. Have a good day, ma'am, the man said. The three of them turned and walked back to their black SUV parked across the street, never once looking back. Lena shut the door slowly. She held the bag in both hands, eyes flicking between it and Jake. What the hell is this? Jake said nothing, just crossed his arms and leaned against the wall, watching her with unreadable calm. Lena hesitated, then unzipped the pouch. Inside was a plain white envelope, thick with contents. She pulled it out slowly, fingers shaking just slightly. She opened the envelope. Out slid a small flash drive, a neatly stacked pile of printed screenshots, dozens of them, and a folded letter on heavy, cream-colored paper. Lena picked up the letter, opened it, and read. Her face drained of color. The muscles in her jaw twitched. She looked at the flash drive again, then the screenshots, each one clearer than the last. Jake didn't move. Lena's lips parted. She finally looked up at him. Her eyes were wide, stunned, sick. Jake, but he was already walking away, footsteps slow and steady down the hallway. On the kitchen table behind him, the letter still lay open. Smile for the camera, sweetheart. The world already saw. Chapter 7. The Fallout. Lena stood in the kitchen like a woman struck by lightning. She clutched the flash drive in one trembling hand. The screenshots splayed across the counter like a murder scene, frames of her giggling, touching, straddling another man in their bedroom. Their bed. Her smile frozen in every image, every lie caught in perfect clarity. Jake stood across from her, arms folded, face unreadable. She turned toward him slowly. Her voice, when it came, was dry and cracking. Jake, this isn't what it looks like. He didn't answer, just tilted his head slightly, like he was watching a movie he'd already seen 100 times. Her hand shook. It was just sex, okay? That's all it was. It didn't mean anything. Jake's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. Funny. It meant something to 45,000 other people. Lena's eyes widened. What? She whispered. Jake walked over to the kitchen drawer, pulled out a neatly folded manila envelope, and set it down in front of her. She didn't move. Open it, he said. Still shaking, she unfolded the flap. Inside were 2 documents, stamped, notarized, official. The first was a petition for divorce. The second, a request for full custody of their 2 children. Lena gasped like she'd been punched. You already filed? Jake nodded. Weeks ago. Her mouth opened, but the words came out shrill and frantic. Jake, please just talk to me. I was lonely. You were never around. Always at the shop, always tired, always looking at me like I was just part of the furniture. You were cheating before I ever looked at you that way. She stepped forward, tears running down her cheeks. I didn't want to fall out of love with you. I didn't plan it. It happened. I felt alive again. Like I was seen. Jake's face didn't move. And now you're famous. Lena's legs gave out. She dropped to the kitchen floor, sobbing into her hands, gasping between ragged breaths. Don't do this, please, Jake. Don't ruin everything. Don't take the kids. They need their mother. Jake slowly crouched beside her, not close enough to touch, just enough so she had to see his face. You weren't thinking about them when you brought a stranger into their home, into our bed, while I was working to keep food on this table. She looked up at him, makeup running down her face, pupils shaking. I'll change. I'll go to therapy. We can fix this. No, he said sharply, voice low and steady. You broke it. He stood again, walked to the living room, and returned with a leather folder. He opened it and laid it out on the counter next to the divorce filings, bank statements, photos of their house title, a letter from his lawyer. I'm keeping the house, he said. I paid for this place, every brick, every nail. Your name's on the deed, but I've already filed to dispute the ownership. The kids will stay here. With me. You can't do that, she snapped, her voice rising like fire from wetwood. You don't get to decide that. Jake shrugged. We'll let a judge decide. I'd love to show him the stream. Lena's face crumpled. You wouldn't. He met her gaze, dead center. Try me. She stared at him, breathless, shoulders heaving. Her fingers clenched into trembling fists. For a moment, she looked ready to scream again, maybe even hit something. Then it hit her. The full weight. The finality. The truth. Jake wasn't bluffing. He wasn't playing a game. This wasn't a dramatic threat or a ploy for guilt. It was already over. The videos, the screenshots, the custody motion, all real. All prepared. Her bottom lip quivered. Jake. But he was already turning away, walking back toward the door with quiet finality in every step. She realized the depth of what she's lost. Chapter 8. After the ashes. The house felt quieter now, but not in the cold, empty way it once had. This quiet had peace in it. The days following the fallout were a blur, court paperwork, whispered gossip from neighbors, awkward glances at the grocery store. But Jake didn't flinch. He held his head high when he walked into work, when he dropped the kids off at school, when he signed the last of the divorce filings. It was done. Lena had moved out within a week, her things packed into boxes she barely looked at. She cried as she left, tried one last apology at the door, Jake didn't answer. He simply closed it behind her and double-locked it. The internet had done what it always did, exploded. Some people called Jake a hero. Others called him cruel. He got messages from strangers across the country. "You're a legend. Finally a man with a spine." That was brutal. Respect. Too far, bro. She deserved worse. Jake read a few, then stopped checking. It wasn't about the audience. It never was. He didn't want revenge anymore. He wanted air, and for the first time in years, he could finally breathe. At the garage, the guys treated him differently. Not with pity, but with quiet respect. Manny clapped him on the shoulder every morning, harder than usual. There in turn, Corey brought him coffee without being asked. "You all right, boss?" Manny asked one afternoon as they worked on a beat-up F-150. Jake tightened a bolt and wiped his hands. "Better than I've been in years." Manny grinned. "Damn right. It wasn't just the shop. Something shifted at home, too. The air was lighter. The tension gone. Dishes didn't sit in the sink anymore. Meals didn't end in silence." His son, Matt, 16, stubborn, sharp-eyed, had stopped avoiding him. They'd barely spoken in the months leading up to everything. The kid had picked up on the tension before Jake ever admitted it was real. Now, he lingered in the kitchen more. Asked if Jake wanted to shoot hoops. Left his door open while gaming. It was progress. Quiet, slow progress. But real. One Friday night, Jake surprised Matt with a camping trip. Just the two of them. No cell service. No distractions. Just an old fishing pole, 2 lawn chairs, and a crackling fire by a lazy river. They didn't talk much the first night. Matt stared into the flames, arms crossed. Jake passed him a roasted marshmallow without a word. But on the second night, as crickets filled the dark and embers danced in the firelight, Matt finally spoke. "So, you're not mad at me, right?" he asked quietly. Jake blinked. "Why would I be mad at you?" "I don't know. I kind of knew something was wrong. With Mom. I didn't say anything." Jake took a deep breath. "It wasn't your job to say anything, kiddo. That's on me." Matt glanced down at his shoes. "I hated how you two were. I used to wish you just split already. Then when you did, I felt bad for wishing it." Jake smiled faintly. "Sometimes things gotta break before they get better." Matt looked up. "Did you love her?" Jake stared at the fire for a long moment, then nodded. "Yeah, I did. For a long time." Matt was quiet for a while. Then, "I don't think I believe in marriage anymore." Jake poked the fire with a stick. Sparks popped and hissed. "That's fair. But don't confuse what she did with what love's supposed to be." Matt frowned. "What is it supposed to be?" Jake leaned back in his chair, eyes on the stars, smoke curling around them. "Love is a promise," he said slowly. "When someone breaks it, don't chase them. Let them trip on their own lies." Chapter 9. A Better Man. By spring, Jake's hands were full again, but for the first time in years, it wasn't with heartbreak. The garage had more cars than bays. Word had spread, not about the scandal, but about the work. The attention to detail. The honesty. Customers who once mumbled awkward hellos now brought friends, left 5-star reviews, even baked cookies. Jake had to hire 2 more guys just to keep up. He stayed late most nights, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Fixing engines was therapy. Steel and timing belts didn't lie to you. Cars broke. You repaired them. There was truth in the simplicity. It was a Wednesday morning when she pulled in. A dusty silver Honda Civic coughed its way up the driveway. The engine rattled like gravel in a tin can. Jake heard it before he saw it. He wiped his hands on a rag and stepped out as the driver's side door opened. She climbed out, late 30s, hair pulled into a messy ponytail, eyes tired but kind. She wore faded jeans, a t-shirt that read "Coffee First, Adulting Later," and had a streak of what looked like yogurt on her elbow. "Transmission?" Jake asked before she could say a word. She laughed, a little breathless. "That obvious?" Jake nodded, smiling slightly. "She's trying to die on you. She's got 2 kids and 3 jobs taped together inside her glove box," the woman said, popping the hood with a sigh. "So she's not allowed to die." Jake walked around, peered under the hood. "How long's it been slipping gears?" "A month," she admitted. "I kept ignoring it. Like a bad ex. Only now it won't even reverse out of the driveway unless I beg." Jake chuckled. "We've all been there." She smiled. "I'm Andrea, by the way." "Jake." They shook hands. Hers was warm and calloused, not soft, but strong. A woman who did things herself. He looked over the Honda with practiced eyes. The transmission was shot, no doubt, but the frame was solid. She'd taken care of what she could. I could take a deeper look today, Jake offered. But if it's what I think, you'll probably need a rebuild or replacement. Andrea groaned. Great. There goes my tax refund. Jake raised an eyebrow. I can get you a refurbished transmission. Cut the labor costs a little if you're okay with waiting a couple days. Might keep you from selling a kidney. Andrea looked at him, surprised. You're nothing like my ex. He'd have quoted me double just because I don't speak car. Jake gave a dry laugh. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me this year. She laughed too, an honest sound, warm and real. No flirtation, just two people surviving. They chatted while he ran diagnostics. She told him about her boys, one in kindergarten, the other starting middle school. Told him how she'd gone back to school at night after the divorce, how she worked 2 jobs and still made time for Friday movie night on the couch. Jake listened more than he spoke, but when he did, it felt easy. I've got 2 of my own, he said. Teenagers. They're good kids. Better now. Andrea looked up. Yeah? Divorce. Something like that. She didn't press. He liked that. As the hours passed, Jake caught himself watching her when she wasn't looking, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, wiping her hands on a baby wipe from the glove box, laughing at a text from one of her kids. Not with longing, not with hunger, but with recognition. He knew that kind of strength. When the work was done for the day, she packed up her things and gave him a grateful smile. Thanks for not talking down to me, she said, climbing into the passenger side of the tow truck he'd arranged. Mechanics usually assume I don't know a socket from spark plug. Jake shrugged. You've kept that thing alive longer than most guys I know. That counts. She paused before the door shut. Let me know when she's ready. I'll bring you coffee and an extra muffin. I bake when I'm stressed. Jake smiled. Deal. She gave a mock salute and disappeared down the road. He stood there a while longer, watching the horizon, hands tucked into his back pockets. Jake wasn't in a rush. He didn't need saving. He wasn't looking to fall. He was still healing. But something had shifted. Not fireworks. Not passion. Just potential. A gentle flicker of something worth exploring. Someday. With someone who didn't lie. Someone who saw him. This time, he'd go slow. This time, he'd never be second best. Chapter 10. Closing line. The toast reversed. The late afternoon sun filtered softly through the maple trees as Jake adjusted the tablecloth on the long wooden table in his backyard. The air smelled of autumn leaves and distant smoke from neighbors' chimneys. It was Thanksgiving again, but the heaviness that once pressed down on this day was gone, replaced with something lighter, almost hopeful. Jake glanced around the backyard. Chairs were slowly filling with new faces. Co-workers from the garage, neighbors he'd only recently met, and a few familiar ones too. His teenage son, Matt, now taller and more confident, sat chatting with Corey, the intern from the shop who had become more like family. There were plates stacked with homemade pies, a platter of roasted vegetables, and a centerpiece. A golden turkey Jake had cooked himself for the first time. Lena was nowhere to be seen. She hadn't come. No invitations were sent. Jake hadn't even thought about her today. This was his life now, and it was full. As the last guest settled in, laughter bubbled up around the fire pit, and kids chased one another through piles of raked leaves. The brittle cold was kept at bay by the warmth of friendship and shared stories. Jake stood near the grill, turning the turkey breast with a spatula in one hand, a beer in the other. He smiled, a slow, genuine smile that reached his eyes. Manny, wiping grease off his hands on a rag, sidled up beside him. Man, you've come a long way. Last year, I thought you'd never get past that mess. Jake chuckled. Took some time. Had to learn to breathe again. Manny nodded. Hell of a thing. But you're stronger now. You're different. Before Jake could respond, a voice called out from the table. Hey, Jake. A toast. It was Andrea, his customer, now a good friend. She lifted her glass, motioning for everyone to join in. To Jake, the man who survived the impossible, fixed more than just cars, and somehow still manages to keep his engine running. Laughter rose around the table. A few others raised their glasses, smiling. Jake cleared his throat, the firelight flickering against his weathered face. Andrea grinned, nudging him. Go on, man. Say something. Jake raised his glass, his gaze sweeping over the friends gathered around. Last Thanksgiving, he began, voice steady. I sat at a table full of family who thought it was funny that I couldn't even afford a real vacation and that my wife deserved a medal for surviving 19 years with me. A murmur rippled through the group. He paused, feeling the weight of those words one last time. And she replied, Jake said, a slight smirk tugging at his lips, or a better man. He let the silence hang for a moment, then lifted his glass higher. But this year, he said quietly, eyes locking with Andrea's across the fire, I raise my glass to a better life. Glasses clinked together in a chorus of cheers. Or a better life. Jake set his glass down and leaned back against the picnic table, feeling something new settle in his chest, something like peace. The past was behind him now. The future, uncertain, yes, but his own. And for the first time in a long time, it was bright.